acclaimed occultist Joshua Ginsberg is here. He's going to tell us about his new cult, his new religion.
Yeah, I my wife jokes that I have a cult following because there's people in black, cloaks and hoods that show up at my door from time to time. So
Isn't that what? Not everyone gets that. I thought
I,
that was.
I really I don't know.
I assume that's a universal experience.
I was hoping they were here to buy books, but they seem to be wielding daggers and might want my blood. I don't know.
Blood is an infinite resource
It's true, and
if you're careful with it.
yeah, in theory, I mean, it renews, it circulates.
Yeah,
I think of it because we live in a swamp, essentially a cultivated swamp. It is the currency of a swamp. I mean, it is what has the most value. What everything wants is your blood.
I'm gonna write that down because
Yeah.
that's gonna be a really good. That needs to get into a story somehow.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh, they'll they'll feed the idea mill. Your collection is out.
It is, yes.
Tales from the Dusty Tiger. I was gonna say I also have my little look, my camera's not gonna zoom in on it, but it's on the screen. It I was very excited. I've been waiting for this for quite some time.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm so glad that you picked up a copy, and it was. I feel like it's been a long time in the coming. As I've been gradually working my way into fiction, and this is sort of the inevitable first product to come forth from that.
I love the book. I love the I love the look of the book. It's very unique, very I don't know, it stands out. And then and it does also kind of tie into the I don't want to the gimmick the bit
The
where
concept.
the concept the we're telling stories of cursed objects from Curiosity Shop based on a real life Curiosity Shop
hmm
down in St. Petersburg, Florida, correct?
This particular one, so there are curio
Tampa,
shops all over the place. Yeah, this
Tampa,
one's in
Florida, Seminole Heights.
Seminole Heights. Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
correct me, please. I'm inevitably wrong. Um, I loved all the stories. They're a lot of fun. Uh, even though some of them are really mean, really mean to people,
Sure.
mean to the characters. But it is still. I mean, that's kind of that's our trade. Um, my first question really is because this is based on a real place. Not it's called the Dusty Tiger,
No, it's something close. It's actually called Tiger Dust,
right?
and I got their permission and approval to kind of create these stories inspired by their place. But every time I talk about it, I have to, put forth a caveat. I promise you, nothing there will require a banishment or an exorcism. Although, caveat emptor, if it does, those will probably be sold separately. Um, but but
I'm
really,
honestly surprised that those shops exist because you check out. I know I buy stuff online now and they're like, here, pay $3 extra and you get like purchase insurance. And I'm
right,
like,
cursed object
I
insurance.
know, like I would just say
Maybe
like,
extra,
hey,
yeah.
$5 extra and we'll give you insurance for your cursed object. If you need it to be banned, you need an exorcism, you need some sort of ritualism done with your object later, we'll be there for you.
Right. And you can subscribe and get full exorcism support and speak to a live exorcist, for a certain number of minutes monthly. I can imagine a whole business model coming together over this.
That's for the sequel. It'll be Tales from the Dusty Tiger too.
Hmm.
Um, I immediately make when I'm reading the stories. I don't know my in at least in a lot of in fiction. My first reach when you have this kind of story is Needful Things. I immediately go to that. I go to the and in that case, it is absolutely There, it's an evil uh, shop owner, an evil, giving a dev. I think in that story, it might be just be the devil. I'm not positive about it. I haven't read Evil Things in a while, but like you make it may make the Dusty Tiger feel a little villainous in that they're like, here's lots of things that are gonna hurt you. Were you that couldn't enter your mind at all when you're like, oh, I don't want to make these people villains, but they are spreading cursed objects around.
I was concerned about that because obviously, this is sort of a hyper local endeavor. And even though it's horror and horrible things happen at the shop and to shoppers, I didn't want the characters, those sort of the shop owners, to come across as evil themselves. And there is a story in there um, that gets into that sort of delves deeper into Hester or Hex's backstory. And part of why I wanted to do that was to make sure that I'm sort of humanizing these characters and making them relatable, and also to have more of a character-driven story in this collection that is very focused on objects.
Yeah. I mean, I the pyromancy story, I mean, it does, and it is like utterly human because it's like, well, how would you live your life if you get a little bit upset and suddenly you burn down the world around you?
Right, and I love the fact that her tinkerer husband, and spoilers I guess are okay here, right?
I mean, I would say here, but I try and dance around them. But
Okay.
if you're this far in this podcast, go read Tales from the Dusty Tiger. Yeah, and then come
I,
back.
I well, not too much of a spoiler, but I
Right.
love the fact that her tinkerer sort of husband has adapted, or this watch like an iWatch or whatever it is, to focus on telling her when her internal heat is sort of escalating. That was a lot of fun.
I mean, my watch, and sometimes it's times when I'm not even really thinking about it. It's like, because my watch gives me alerts. It's like, how about we take a second to breathe, relax? And I'm like, I don't feel like I'm that amped up, but I guess I am. I'm very anxious or something. My heart rate's going up or something like that. So it does. I don't know. It did tie into my own feelings of like, oh, sometimes I get a little hot. I don't even think about it. It's just
Mhm.
my watch is like, hey, buddy, why don't you calm down a little bit? I'm like, I am calm. Watch, leave me alone. Um, I think, I mean, and they're really not outwardly villainous, but there is that buyer beware mentality
Sure.
of if you're running a curiosity shop with actual cursed objects, then you're like, well, if you buy anything, it might be dangerous. You don't know. But I mean, I think that I kind of led off with that question because it kind of dovetails into the next is there's a lot of in your stories, and I mean, I've done it in my own fiction at times as well. It's like, it's not really the shop owners who are antagonists. It's really consumerism is an antagonist, is a villain, modern capitalism. It feels, because I don't know, in all the stories, the Dusty Tiger is like this bastion of authenticity,
Hmm.
of a real of like art and culture and real people living real lives versus like this very kind of, there multiple of your stories. I'm trying to, specifically the candle
Oh,
story.
no free sniffs.
In those three sniffs, that in particular, that story, that's the one that stands out, where the I don't know, she is the protagonist of the story, even though
Mhm.
she's not a great person.
No,
She's a little
she's
bad.
better. She's better by the time we get to the end as a result of what she's gone through.
She gets
Uh,
a little lesson in humility.
yeah,
Yeah.
but you're absolutely spot on. And I mean, if you think about what makes vintage shops or antique shops or curio shops so interesting and fun and unique. Everything there has a story. Everything there was brought by somebody whose grandfather, took that trench lighter with him into World War II, or, the fez that was worn on special occasions when your great grandfather was part of the Odd Fellows. But everything has a story. It is the antithesis, as you mentioned, of sort of mass consumerism, where, what's the story of that, plastic tchotchke on my keychain? Well, it was, designed and made on a assembly line like a billion others and shipped out via Etsy or whatever. Um, but you don't really find that in curio shops. And so everything has a story, and getting to delve into those stories, some of which, a few of which at least are kind of hopefully heartwarming, but most of which I think are bloody and vicious.
I mean, there it is. I don't know. The collection as a whole reminded me. It gave me a lot of. Oh, why can I always struggle. I always forget the name of the Spielberg anthology series in the '90s.
Oh, amazing stories.
Yeah, so it gave me that. It was like back and forth like that and Tales from the Crypt or a Twilight Zone, where it's like the Amazing Stories was it did have a fair share of like spookiness and stuff going on, but ultimately it was like kind of heartwarming and not as grisly and bloody. And there's a handful of stories in this, including especially the with the dice, the
Yeah.
very sweet story. And not, but that's not alone. There's like a multiple stories like the uh, what Zeitgeist. That's not
Mm.
I didn't feel I don't know bloodthirsty to me. It felt again. It's more of a science fiction is ish story, with a time traveling typewriter or whatever. But it that's not bloody and grisly, even though some of the other ones are.
Yeah. I mean that one was really kind of paying tribute to the old Twilight Zone writers. I mean, quite obviously, Ray Bradbury,
Yeah,
and although I mean, he had Ray Bradbury Theater, um, but Beaumont and Matheson and Beaumont really did, as a sort of Twilight Zone writer. It's sort of amazing. He perished, unfortunately, in what is perhaps one of the most Twilight Zone ways imaginable, as a young man who essentially sort of rapidly aging and died of old age. And I absolutely love his stories, and really all of their stories, and even the George Clayton Johnson and Damian Knight, and so, um, that concept, I'm so glad you mentioned amazing stories, because that's one I hadn't even consciously thought of. But those sort of anthology series is very much near and dear to my heart, and I think it's very much central to Tales from the Dusty Tiger.
yeah. And I mean, I like coming back to the authenticity
Hmm.
of having real life objects. Um, I don't know if this was conscious on your part, but it feels like I don't know that yes, some of these objects are dangerous and are cursed or whatever. They carry weight, but because the danger is authentic, because they are real, it is still kind of worthwhile to carry these objects to chronicle these objects because they are authentic, because that's what real life is. Real life is not polished and sanded down and baby proofed. That is a part of living, is the fact that you may encounter things with an element of danger, because they are real. They are not a Nike store. They're not an Apple bar. They are, I don't know, lived
Yeah,
lived objects.
I mean, they have, part of having stories means they have flaws. They have things that might entice you or fascinate you, but yeah, they have things that might hurt you. And it isn't always the obvious things. I mean, sure, like knives and blades and, pikes and axes. I mean, yes, of course, we know those things are dangerous, but a vacuum cleaner?
Yeah.
That was getting to kind of subvert a lot of the obvious things was really fun.
Yeah. I do like I mean, I feel like that's part of the charm is like it's that fun. You don't a, an objects. I don't know. People make fun of that. I don't know. This just comes to my head. I was talking about. I think I was talking about. It was in. I think it's in Night Shift, Stephen King's
Hmm.
first collection of the laundry, the laundry folder that is cursed and kills
Okay.
people,
You
and
see,
people.
for him, I always think of the Mangler, right?
Yeah,
With
that's
the
yes,
Mangler.
exactly. And I'm like, well, and people make fun of that. I'm like, well, no, I mean, I think kind of the fun of that is to me is that it is this unexpected, like, yeah, it's an object that you wouldn't normally think of as, oh, it's not a sword, it's not a gun, um, but it still can carry weight. It can still carry something with it because it sometimes we don't choose. Sometimes, just chaos things like a vacuum cleaner carry a curse. Um and this and like I think this also speaking of amazing stories, it feels the stories as a whole are also kind of are at war with doubt
Mm,
and kind of and lack of wonder in people's lives, lack of awe in
yeah.
people's lives. And like a couple of stories almost like verge on allegory, I think at times, where it's like you should again. I think that the no free sniff story is one of them where it's like this woman is not she's not a believer. She's like, yeah, okay, whatever. And then she's punished for it. But it's
Mhm.
like, and coupled with the illustrations, which I do love. I love the illustrations of the book. Um, those two things like together. I don't know if this was. I want to know if like it made me think of Road Doll.
Yeah.
It made me think of Shel Silverstein.
Oh, again, very, my whole aesthetic and mindset for this, I think, was very Gen X, very, very 80s, 90s. If you grew up in that time period, I've referred to Joseph Weed, who also goes by Mr. Willow, and the illustrator is kind of like a Tampa version of Edward Gorey.
Yeah.
And he is just phenomenal. Ever since I saw some artworks he had created for some of my favorite 80s horror movies. He did sort of his own mock covers for An American Werewolf in London and The Thing and a bunch of others. And I was like, I found his work at Tiger Dust. So really, we connected there. And he and I sort of collaborated on a few projects. He also does comics. Um, he does a ton of prints, um, and I think he's actually working on a card game for someone right now. But really dynamic and very distinct with his line work. But he and I collaborated on a few other stories of mine that have not been published, and it was so much fun to work with him. And I just feel like he and I think about things in a very similar fashion. So he's always got just this great intuitive grasp of where I'm going, and his illustrations were phenomenal. I mean, it was really so great to be able to work with him on this.
I mean, it's the they again like I grew up on where the sidewalk ends, and it's like a lot of those and any of those like the Road Doll, the Shel Silversteins, they always as a child inspired that kind of like, oh, invite wonder in your life, invite awe in your life, and respect. I feel like that's another thing coming back to no free snips is like that. Respect these items,
Hmm.
respect their stories, respect their age.
Right, and respect each other. I mean, no free sniffs also sort of started. I think I had written that after a particularly poor, vendor event
Oh
where,
no.
I was literally next to like a boxed wine company and a candle shop on the other side, and people would come by and kind of flip through each and every one of my books and then just go on. And so I mean, yeah, there's it's maybe a little retaliatory. But I mean, we've all had that experience, and it just it went from there and became something I think it's much deeper and more significant.
I mean, I think that's. I mean, those are the. I. It's partially why it connects with me. Is like I. You talk about. I could talk about vending events all day long. About. I'm about to start a very busy month of it, and there is the the scourge of 3D printed dragons at conventions where it's like there's nothing wrong with one person selling a 3D printed dragon, but when
Hmm.
it's five different places selling 3D printed dragons and Funko Pops,
Right.
and I'm like, where's the art? Where is the transformative? Like what are you making? Like, I'm selling my own art. I wrote these books from beginning to end. Uh, a computer didn't print this out and vomit out plastic that you are selling for $40. And it's like that craving of like, I try and give business to artists,
Hmm.
to people making real things. I want, or like a curiosity shop with something with real history, real age, and like that is the value to me. Is and you mentioned their story, like that's the value, and not it. I don't know. That's the authenticity of it, where it's like the this a computer vomited this out, like, or the tchotchke, a keyboard that a keychain that there's literally a million of them in the whole world, and you're like, I don't. There's not a lot of value in that to me, where like there's a million of something. I don't. Why do I want it? It's not
Right. and,
special.
and and that's carried through. I wanted to make the book itself kind of have that unique feel. I mean, the way it's sort of gallery wrapped on the cover in a lot of ways kind of takes me back to like my zine making days, where you'd have these things sort of stapled together, and none of them were stapled uniformly. And and so having sort of like the sign numbered limited edition. My hope, and we're going through them thankfully pretty quickly. Once we come to the end, I think Too Many Tentacles, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Tiger Dust, um, plans to do a much larger, generally available release and ebooks and all of that. But at least initially, we wanted the book itself to tie in and sort of connect with um, the uniqueness or the scarcity of the objects that are described within.
I mean, I got it. I mean, I think I texted you when I got my copy. I was just like, wow,
You did.
it looks really good, and it really is.
You.
It feels, again, it feels special. It feels different than other books, which I think is important. Um, Secret Santa, one of my favorites of the story, like
Oh yeah.
written in second person. Have you written a story in second person before? Is that the first one?
That was not my first story. I really like it, but I don't do it all that often. And a lot of times I knew so this story, and um originally I had created this story, I think, for the and submitted it to the Written Backwards Darkest Day of the Year anthology.
Okay.
And it ultimately didn't make the cut, but and my god, the stories it did were like just amazing. um but I did really like the story, and so I thought, by placing one of the objects, uh, having been procured from the Dusty Tiger, I was able to kind of repurpose it. And so I started off with this idea of I want I want to tell the story through objects. And I want these to be gifts, but gifts that are not given in like a friendly sort of way. The giver is sort of, I mean, there's almost this threat, right? That they're sort
Yeah.
of unveiling your criminal activities. It's almost like a stalker, but the twist beyond that is really ultimately who the stalker is. And I wanted to do something with that gothic trope of the divided self. And so putting all of those things together, it came out way better than I hoped it would. And second person, um, I really try to play with narration throughout the book,
Yeah.
and almost every story I think is told in a slightly different way, or first, second, third person. Um, different types of characters narrating. So I wanted it to feel like every story is really different from the others, but they're all connected, and it's clear that they were ultimately written by one person. But yeah, that one is really kind of near and dear to my heart. I really am happy to hear you like that.
I mean, I here my favorites in no particular order: Secret Santa, Zeitgeist, The Vessel, which I know you wrote for um, our friends
Yep, the
at
Phantom
the Phantom,
Menagerie.
yeah, the Phantom Menagerie, and then Radio Nothing,
Oh,
which might be my favorite. I really, really liked Radio Nothing. Um, I don't know but it is there like there is this. I mean, one of the stories is told through online reviews
yeah.
of which I like that the novelty of it. Again, like there's all these. It feels like there's a lot of this lately, whereas people are like, "Well, how can you write a horror story through a recipe? How can you write a
Mhm.
horror story through a DIY instructional video?" Like it's very much like let's play with form. And you do that. You do have it. You have the second, Secret Santa that is written in second person. You have through an online review of of the shop,
Right.
which
And that let me kind of extend a lot of the stories beyond their own confines, right? Because some of the characters that we've seen who have experienced, who have run into problems with things they've acquired there can sort of discuss those on these forums. And at the same time, we do get kind of a small news story. But my intention is that it's hopefully very, very playful. And some of the stories really are I think pretty bloody and graphic. I think Kiss of the Babushka Lady is maybe the
I do
goriest.
I do love I mean, I do like Kiss of the Babushka Lady a lot, largely because I was also, as a teenager, obsessed with the JFK assassination,
Mhm.
and I was, like, immediately like, "Oh, yeah, of course, that makes." And then we have, like, a kind of a mimetic video that is devours people.
Right.
Um, I mean, I just finished a manuscript that deals with an assassination, and I mentioned the Zapruder film in it, so it was like right on top of my head. I'm like,
Yeah.
conspiracy theorists, they have to they hone in on the like try and find this lost footage of things, and I remember
Right.
reading about the Babushka lady a lot.
And all of those conspiracy theories spin off all sorts of weird sort of objects and legendary items, and
Yeah.
a bullet that was fired from the grassy knoll, or this videotape that the babushka lady was taking that was never found. And so you end up, all the lore of these conspiracy theories that creates its own world of kind of, you know, maybe quasi real objects.
I mean, that's kind of the joy of it, is that by us creating a mythos around something, it makes that object real. It
Right.
is it even if it isn't real. We have invented the object in our head. We have the head wrap of the babushka lady. Like it's we have like who know it. She probably was just some random lady, not honest about her at all. But we don't know. It's a
Maybe she
mystery.
got back to her hotel and was like, "Oh, I didn't have it turned on," you know.
Oh yeah, exactly. Or she's just like, well, the president died. I'm gonna let's
Right.
oops, I lost it.
Toss
Oops.
that in the burn box, or
Yeah. I
over the
don't need
side of the boat railing to go join the heart of the sea. Right.
yeah, I don't need to be Lee Harvey Oswald. I don't need to be Jack Ruby'd. Uh
Right.
um That's all the time. I think we're running out of time in this segment. I could probably talk to you. I mean, we have talked for hours, just not being recorded. Um, but Tales from the Dusty Tiger is incredible. Uh, I'm going to provide links where they can get it from you,
Mhm.
signed copies from Joshua Ginsberg. You ready for the second act, Josh?
Let's do it. I'm ready.
Okay, second act is more broader bookish questions, but you're like a wealth of knowledge and resources for strange fiction, which is so a lot of these questions will be pointed at that. But and
Okay,
some
I'm just I know such a small fragment of it. I mean, it is vast. It is impossible to I even hesitate to put myself in as kind of a true aficionado since I'm literally
you constantly are telling me people like you're like, hey Robbie, you should read. Have you ever read this weird thing? I'm like, no, but now I am. I'm gonna go read this weird thing. Um, we'll start with a question from my last guest. Actually, we'll start with that. Um, and it's a pretty interesting questions from David Washburn. His new book just came out. Uh, what is the last book you read that gave you a physical reaction?
ooh, the last book I read that gave me a physical reaction. Let me think about that. I mean, um, there are two that I was thinking of that had a big part in inspiring the Dusty Tiger earlier. One of which was, of course, the Books of Blood, and the other was the Illustrated Man. It wasn't necessarily a visceral reaction. I think if you're looking for that, it was maybe Blood Meridian, which I finally, read recently. And boy,
Yeah,
I had to put that down at times and say, "Whoa, this
it's
is a
hard.
lot for me to process."
It's a hard book. Yeah, Blood
Yeah,
Meridian is absolutely. I mean, it's an incredible book. A master.
it is.
I would call it a masterpiece, but it is
But
incredibly hard.
and know going into it that you're essentially like volunteering to have the interior of your head scarred forever.
Yeah, exactly. Cormac McCarthy is like, here, I'm just gonna etch this book into your brain tissue for the
It's
rest of your
written
life.
in pure damage.
Yeah. I mean, I just read speaking of Cormac McCarthy, I just read a piece about people who were basically going through his personal library after his death and
Oh
like
wow,
and it is I mean, I'll send it to you, but it's a good piece, but and they're putting it online. They're putting his library or like at least the things that were in the library because and he there's evidence that he read like there's handwritten notes throughout all these incredibly disparate. So it's almost all nonfiction. It's very little fiction. It's all like this crazy nonfiction. But Blood Meridian, yeah, absolutely is like it does create. It makes you feel things, which is
yeah,
why it's why I suggest it to people. Like if people, but if you're timid, if you're squeamish, I don't. It's hard to take at times. Um, and I'm gonna come back to you at the end of this and ask your question for our next guest. Okay. So
okay.
I want you. It can be anything. Could be anything at all. Could be bookish question. Could not. It can be anything you want to. Any kind of fun question you could think of. I'll come back to you for it. What's the best piece of advice you followed?
There's been a lot, and I think one of them is just finish it, get it finished, because since that weird um, wall or dam or whatever burst in my head, like ideas have just been flooding out, and it certainly has been a concern that one day that well will run dry. I'm sort of worrying about that less, and I try to jot down and kind of catalog all these ideas for future use, even if I can't get to them today. But whatever you're working on, see it all the way through, even if it's awful, even if you do it and you get to the end and say that was terrible and it doesn't work and I won't ever show anyone. um, it's something that's completed. It's you've learned from that, whether it worked or didn't. So I guess see it all the way through and finish it. Yeah, you can edit it. A lot of great stories started off absolutely abysmal if the authors are to be believed. So just finish it.
Yeah. I mean, I can echo you more. It's a lot of, especially for beginning writers, beginning authors. It's like people are like, can I dance around and do 4 projects at once? I'm like, well, some people can, but
Yeah,
until you are routinely finishing things, focus on one thing at a time. Um, and I also like to say that the well doesn't run dry, but there is mud down there at the bottom.
sure.
So yeah, so don't, if you're going down, if you're getting buckets and they're full of mud all the time, maybe slow
Time
down a little.
to
Take a break.
replenish.
Yeah, take a break. Let it replenish a little bit.
and and yeah, there's um I'm also learning to trust myself more, and I think a lot of why I started with short fiction is simply because it's short and I can have the kind of control over it that I want. With novelettes and novellas and novels and series and things, I feel like it's so easy to get away from you, and I really micromanage every word in a lot of these, drabbles and micro pieces and flash pieces. Gradually, my work is getting longer, and I feel like that's a reflection of kind of learning to trust myself that I can guide this story to where it needs and wants to go. And I can't always. Sometimes I fail to do that, but I think uh, I'm feeling more confident that I can do
Yeah,
it.
I mean, it's part of the journey. Is like
Yeah.
you trusting your own instincts and like trusting like that you are the only person who can tell this story this in this way, and
Yeah, often
you have to push yourself to do it.
and often, as my wife reminds me, the only person who would ever want to tell this story in that way.
Of the
Yeah,
cursed vacuum cleaner.
sure.
Yeah. Um, who's a writer more people should be reading?
Well, there's this gentleman, Robbie Dorman, that I
Oh,
like.
don't do that.
Daniel Brahm is another one. Really, really like his work, which deals with kind of weird liminal stuff. Um, I know uh, I like Elaine in our group. She's phenomenal.
It's
Um,
Elaine Pascal for all those listening. If you don't know Elaine,
um,
you should go read Elaine.
I know I've mentioned him in some other places, but big fan of Kurt Favre, who also does a lot of short fiction, and it's sort of if you like the idea that there might be a glitch in the cosmos, that sort of thing, very this sort of mind breaking stuff. He's awesome for that. J.W. Oker, I love his stuff, and it's kind of nonfiction travel, weird exploration. So I connect with him on that level. But he's somebody who's also successfully made the transition into fiction. So I'm always kind of interested in what he's doing. And honestly, anybody who's been a guest on your podcast, Robert Atone, Alma Katsu, I mean, it really is like a who's who of people that I read, and I'm just so thrilled to be on that list. So thank you.
I mean, I bring people in here I want to talk to.
Cool.
And you're in that list. Um, let's see. What's a word you hate?
Well, I mean, aside from the obvious, I don't really like racial or ethnic,
No, 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 no. We don't. Obviously, yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
um, a word that I have been doing battle with lately is just. Just. Because
Just,
it's just such a quiet, sneaky word, and it's
yeah.
just so easy to miss when you're doing edits, and it is just everywhere in my writing, and I need to
It,
go back with that red
yeah,
pen.
yeah. The Control F just, and you're like, oh god,
Yeah,
there's
so
so
I mean,
many of them.
4 times in 1,000 page or 1,000 word story. That's a lot of just. It becomes hard to justify using it that much, but
Yeah, you can. I mean, I was I in my interview with Viggy Parhampton. She mentioned the word that.
Hmm.
And it's another one of those words that are like crutch words that actually don't do anything in a sentence. They're filler, right? They're
It's filler for when you feel like you need filler, but you just don't.
you just don't. You can get it
And,
out of
and
there.
the
You have
same
to
with
rewrite your sentences.
the same with however, though. A lot of those words really want to sneak into my writing, and man, I just got to strap on the boxing gloves and
Well,
knock
it's
them out.
there's that always that war about how colloquial is my language going to be? Like people
Right.
speak like that. Yes. Do I want it? Especially sometimes it varies per story. Sometimes certain stories you're like, well, I do want more colloquial language because the prospective
Hmm.
character is going to be a little bit more folksy or going to be a little bit long winded in how they talk. So I'll allow an extra though in there. I'll let it have that in this case. But a lot of times you're like, you can't let it take over because then it'll be your entire like half the words will be just connective tissue.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Is to if you're really in the head of your narrator, is would they use a word like just or like or though in the way and as often as you do? And usually the answer is no. Usually I, the author, use those words constantly,
Yeah.
but the person speaking probably would not.
No. And it's again you have that like war about heightened narrative and like heightened narration where it's like, well, how much do I want to emphasize that they again like it's they are you going to turn into like Tennessee Williams or you're going to have like this really heightened kind of dialogue? Probably not. Um what's the strangest video served to you in the algorithm?
Oh gosh. This is something that haunts my nightmares
Oh
now.
no.
It's like a techno industrial nightmare version of the opening of the Teletubbies. And once you've seen it, you can't unsee it, and it
Okay.
will live in your head for all of eternity. So just, I mean, it's kind of like this Rammstein like voice, sort of like doing the intro, and this horrific AI nightmare version.
Oh
That
gosh.
yeah, that's the one.
Okay, that's a good answer. I like that. Um,
Yeah, my feed is a whole realm of horror. My wife, I never worry about like having anything like to hide on my phone, because I know my wife never wants to look at my phone for fear of encountering like what the algorithm is serving me. It's
yeah.
it's really it's almost like an added layer of protection.
What's a book that rips out your heart?
A book that rips out my heart. Oh, and I know you're a fan of him too. Robert R. McCammon. I
Yeah.
go back to Boy's Life all the time,
Yeah.
and I think that opening really touches me, and I just connect with that. He so perfectly and beautifully captures nostalgia. Um, and the Owl Going Back story, Grass Dancer. I can't get through that story without tearing up. There's a bunch of others. There was in the Pseudopod anthology. There was a story by Ken Liu that was like devastatingly beautiful, and I feel like it's like a picture book that this father has made for his kid about all the like alien life forms that his mother has gone off to explore because she's left and left them to go on her mission to the stars. And so it's um that one, boy, that yanked my heart out and stomped up and down on it.
I mean, that's what I want.
Yeah, I mean,
That's what I want.
we read to feel, and it isn't always good. That's if you only read stuff that made you feel good, you'd be missing out on pretty much all of the great literature ever written. It's like collecting art, right? I collect things that I think that make me feel something important to feel when I look at them. But a lot of the time, it's not happiness.
No.
Sometimes it's grief or pain or disgust, or but still you can't look away from it.
Yeah. I mean, I want there. I went to a book club last night, and they were they were picking a book for a future month, and it was the theme was cozy.
Mm.
I had no suggestions. I had nothing. I was like, I can't think of a single book on my TBR that's like a cozy read because I just don't seek it out very often.
Yeah,
It's
and
typically hard things that make me feel bad.
I mean, I get it. It has its value and its place, and it can. There are great, I would say, great cozy writers. I mean, is Agatha Christie considered cozy?
I think some Agatha is, yeah.
I mean, these, um, and who can fault someone in the world we live in for wanting,
Oh yes,
some comfort food for
escapism.
thought. Yeah,
I mean, I think all my comfort media is just YouTube cooking shows. I think that's literally
yeah,
all.
that
If
works.
I want comfort, or I'll go to a work simulator video game, Power Wash Simulator. Shout out to Power Wash Simulator.
Mhm.
Uh, can't wait
The
for the sequel.
Simpsons. The Simpsons are always good for
Yeah,
you
Simpsons.
know.
I love the Simpsons.
I know you're a big fan, and I was thinking before I came on, the risk of taking our conversation too far off the rails, if such a thing is possible. Um, watching The Simpsons, I am convinced more than ever that Matt Groening is the Shakespeare of our times. And that 200 years from now or 500 years from now, if anyone is studying, late 20th, early 21st century America to try to understand what we were all about, they will be watching Simpsons the way that we read Shakespeare to understand what was happening socially, politically. Um, yeah,
I have a podcast with literally thousands of hours of me talking about The Simpsons called The Simpsons Show. For anyone listening who's not aware, go listen to that. I am literally, I've made this claim, and I'm serious about it. I am the foremost Simpsons scholar on the planet because
wow.
I've probably recorded more hours of me talking about that dang show than anybody else on earth, even people who work for the show. Okay, Josh, I need your question for my next guest.
And without knowing who your guest is,
I can tell you if you like.
no, you know what? Let's keep it a mystery.
Okay.
What was the top thing, or even the top two or three things that transformed your writing? Was it something you read? Was it something um, that you thought of, or someone told you, or advice? Was there one or two or even three things that took your writing when you were starting and really transformed it and put it on the path to becoming what it is now and where it's going? So
That's
transformative writing, experiences, I guess.
I like that a lot. That's a good
Thank you.
question.
And it ties into, I'm also reading this.
Oh, I need
Now.
to read that. Yeah,
It's,
I just saw it come out.
yeah, it's as fantastic as everybody says it is. It really is.
Yeah, John Langan. I just interviewed John Langan a couple weeks ago, and
Oh,
he
he's
has
awesome.
this. I love. He's again fisherman. I told him this. Fisherman changed my life. Um, he has a. I believe he has a piece in there that he has in his new collection is a longer version of it, which is incredible. It's an incredible thing
Oh
because
wow.
it's because you're literally you. I mean, that episode comes out. I think the week multiple weeks ago, so people can go listen to that and then go read his collection. But it is like you are literally riding shotgun with him as he writes a horror story and seeing
Mm,
him make choices, and it's really interesting.
very cool.
Um, Josh, it's time for blood.
All right.
It's time for our third and final segment where we talk about struggle. We talk
Okay.
about trouble with either a work in progress, with, it could be nuts and bolts, could be ethical, could be philosophical, could be business problems with like publishing issues, questions
Mm.
about things like that. What do you got?
So, for me, I think I have some longer pieces that I'm working on, and my challenge is they bog down. I lose interest a bit. I have to I think the answer is I just need to kind of steamroll through it. But we're in that place now where, work has been crushing me. The
Yeah.
season has been crushing me because we're in sort of the, peak event and book selling season for us weirdo writers.
Yeah.
Um, and I think I just need to kind of re-energize and remotivate. But I have a it's kind of a super uber dark fairy tale that I've been working on and off for months. A really grim retelling at its heart of sort of the Little Mermaid, which the original is pretty dark, but
Yeah.
I wanted to see how much darker we could go. I
Oh,
mean, we're
good.
talking, you know, like Clive Barker esque body horror here, and integrate. Really, there's sort of three primary characters, and each gets their own section of the story. There is the mermaid, who really might be more like some sort of siren creature, and she gets sort of the first story. The prince, after things go south and he marries her and things go wrong and they can't produce an heir, he goes off to war. And so the story of the prince, and his sort of ever darkening world. And then the final piece is about a very cruel, twisted alchemist named Ghoul, Gul, who has the mermaid sort of imprisoned, and he's convinced that he can make the philosopher's stone from some part of her, from her blood or her organs or something, and she is extremely resilient, which means that that gets very grim and depressing, but there is resolution. And so you've got these three stories, and I think they amount to probably a novella told together. But I'm through the first, and I kind of started on the third. I jumped around a bit. I need to just take my own advice and sit down and hammer it out.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's just, I mean, that's the struggle is like, you're tired and you're, you're, I talk about it, like writing is decision fatigue.
yeah,
You're making choices. When you're writing, it's why like whenever you get out of a fugue state of writing for, you wrote for an hour and suddenly you come out of it, you can be very tired. Is like, well, you just made lots and lots of decisions.
yeah. You gave birth to something through your brain. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, and sometimes you really feel that afterwards. I imagine. I've never actually given birth, but
Not
no. I
yet.
mean, you like to call it wrestling through an idea. Is sometimes it is a very physical feeling endeavor that leaves you drained, like you said,
Yeah.
and I feel like every day, uh, I'm waking up with less and less in the tank, and it's got to get me further and further. So we've got to be creative about how we get there.
I mean, it's a kind of anecdote I say a lot, but it's like there's lots of bad writing days. But if
Mhm.
you look at that, what you wrote on a bad writing day a year later, can you tell? Can you notice, oh, I didn't feel very good that day, or I didn't feel like I
Right.
had energy, but then I sat down and I did it, and then suddenly, oh, actually, no, my writing's probably mostly the same, and then and then when I revise it, I clean up any of those little errant things where like, oh, I was a little sloppy that day, or I put in too many commas or
And
whatever it is.
yeah, the word "just" every other
Yeah, a lot of
word.
justs.
But um, but yeah, and I think you're onto something, because even your worst writing day, you're still going to look back on and feel better than the day you didn't write anything at all.
Yeah, and I mean it's the finish it.
Right.
It doesn't. And I don't know. I'm intrigued. Immediately, like, well, I need to now. I got to read the Josh novella. I need to whatever the demented. I mean, Clive Barker did do the like so much dark fantasy as well. So it
Yeah.
does again. It
Yeah.
fits if it's going to be a Clive Barker esque body mute. I mean, honestly, the original story is body R.
Oh
Like
yeah.
yeah, the mermaids. her body is transforming, and it is like it is some of it is about the shock of your limbs changing shape.
Yeah, and it's in my story, it happens violently, and it doesn't quite work out 100% the way you hope. She's
Oh
not going
no.
you know but yeah, and so I lean hard into that. And maybe this goes back to another piece of advice. So I do want to write more longer pieces. I look at somebody like you that just like you're constantly finishing novels, which amazes me to no end. I think I need to do one, and I think I've been kind of psyching myself out. And I've been looking at it like, I know how to write the micro stories and short stories, and even some longer short stories, but I don't really know how to write a novel. And so I looked, of all places, to Douglas Adams, and I thought about his advice for flying, which is that flying is very easy. All you have to do is throw yourself at the floor and miss. And so I'm like, okay, so you know what? My approach to novel writing maybe needs to be, I'm just going to write a short story that fails to be short by such a large margin that it becomes something else.
I mean, it's not drastically that different than a short story. It
Right.
really isn't. I don't when people start like I don't know where to start. I'm like, well, start with a short story. It's a good place to start, or like even a drabble. Start with like this a smallest story you can, and you have practice going from A to B to C, and then you just stretch out the space in between A and B. You stretch out the space between B and C. Like it's, I don't know. There's lots of tricks to make things longer. Like if you want to write a novel versus a novella, uh, a couple more perspective characters. You have a couple more flashbacks. You have a flashback. You have visions. Again, when you're writing horror, it's very easy because you can just write.
Mhm.
You can write people having terrible nightmares or terrible visions of something, and
Sure.
and then suddenly, oh, that's another 3,000 words just added to this story, and it adds atmosphere, and you can foreshadow things. You can provide like ominous harbingers. Oh no, something bad's going to happen later. Uh, but I don't. When you say you don't know, yeah, you could write a novel. I mean, the vessel, which I think is the longest of the stories in
I
Tales from the
think I
Dead.
think that's the longest story in there. I have written
Yeah,
some longer ones than that.
yeah. I mean, those are and that's like you're kind of that feels like again that could be a novel. You just keep writing. You just keep exploring the eventual like what happens when you follow that poor accountant as he goes to recover it. Like you keep following him, and then there you have a novel. It's
Right.
I don't know. I don't consider myself again. I'm very single minded. I think that's the only thing I have. It's
Well,
just go.
I think it's great. I'm a big fan of your work, so I'm glad you're doing that.
I mean, it's the finish a thing and you just keep going. It's not too bad, but I mean, it is. There's also acts of like burnout where you're like, oh, I'm
Sure.
when you're exhausted and or your job's crushing you or the world is crushing you. But it's also like there's a degree of compartmentalization where you're like, and you have to be convinced. Again, there's like a level of delusion where you're like, my stories are important. They need to exist so you can focus, like cut out all the external distractions and get that stuff down because it needs to happen. Even though, in the grand scheme of things, another one, an 18th book from me is not necessarily going to change the world, but I have to believe it does.
Well, and maybe it's the 18th book that changes your world, and isn't that really, it only takes one. And if you think of each of your books as potential energy, right? It just takes one to catch fire, and then all of a sudden, people, I mean, this one book is going nuts and through the roof, and then everybody's like, oh, and have you read his other 17 books? And all of a sudden, I mean, that goes from like a little self-contained fire to a conflagration. That's the dream. That is my dream for you.
Oh, that's thank you. It's my dream for me too, but we'll see. I have my doubts about that. If you have the first part right, you already have the first the mermaid section done. Then I don't know. There's also a degree of I think when you're writing longer fiction, when you're working towards a novella or a novel, the cursed muddle as people call
Mm.
it. When you're in the middle of a project that's longer form, it's your brain chemicals. It is your brain likes new things. Everyone's brain likes new things. It's just your brain thinks new things are more exciting. It fires off more chemicals in you to make you like, oh, this is great. And that's why a lot of people falter at when they're trying to write a novel and they fail is because like, oh, they write 20,000 words, 15,000 words, and then they're not in the beginning of it anymore. It's not new anymore. Now it is old. It is boring.
And so to turn that into sort of my attempt at a pithy little witticism. Um, what you need to do is isolate the endure from endorphin.
Terrible. The wit the witlessism. I like that a lot
Yeah,
too.
thank you.
I'm
Thanks.
gonna steal that.
Sometimes the fumble recovery is better than the actual pass.
That's true. Yeah, sometimes you get touchdowns out of that. Um, we're running out of time. Josh, tell people where they can find you, where they can find your books, find your writing, all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you can find me lurking in curiosity shops and dark alley. No, just kidding. If, mostly, where am I? You can find my work online and in your independent stores, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. But if you want signed copies, you can get those at www.secrettampabay.com. I've also been very active on Patreon, and that's patreon.com/author Joshua Ginsberg. I'm Secret Tampa Bay on Facebook, and I think I'm author Joshua Ginsberg on Instagram. So that's where you can find me, and I hope everybody will.
Yeah, I'll put links to all that stuff in the show notes.
Oh, thank
People
you.
people can follow you. I mean, this will all be posted on social media too, so people will theoretically be able to click over to you. And I think I sometimes have too much faith in people's ability to use the internet
Hmm.
because I have faith where like if I'm listening to a podcast and I see a person, I'd be like, well, I just know their name. I'll Google it. Oh, I find that this is their social media profile. Oh, this is their store. I immediately can, but I think I'm better at it than some people, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Uh,
you seem pretty social media savvy. I try to be as well, and
it's hard
there's a few key areas that I've kind of focused on, and it's you can spend your whole life doing that as opposed to actually just sitting down and
writing a book.
my damn novella already.
Yeah, exactly. That's the other thing. It's like it's
Right?
the business part of being an author sometimes takes precedent over the author part of being an author.
Sometimes it does, but I think less often than most of us authors will tell you it does. I think sometimes that becomes sort of the easy place for us to, maybe the easiest place for us to avoid just sitting down and pouring that blood on the typewriter.
Couldn't end it in a better way. Josh, thanks for being on the show.
All right. Thank you.